If you have over $200,000 sitting stagnant in your bank, retirement account, or home equity, then you're literally losing money. On this show, you learn how to get that money working for you consistently and conservatively. Learn to grow your nest egg with your host, Shawn Winslow. Let's dive in.
What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Shawn Winslow, and this is the Multifamily Money Podcast. Today's going to be a little different, everybody. Usually the drill is every Monday we're coming at you with all things multifamily and real estate investing. Every Friday, personal finance. Well, today we've got a great show. Kind of meshes business, personal finance, life, content creation, brand building. It's just a phenomenal episode that I know anyone listening can get value from. First, I just want to give a shout out to our guest and thank him for coming on. This is a guy that doesn't need to do this. He has a huge following, a lot of businesses. And when I originally sent out the dates, I didn't realize that I put times and dates on Memorial Day. I totally forgot it was a holiday. I think sometimes you just get into that grind of building your business, of working, and you just, it's just another Monday, let's go. And I didn't realize till after the fact when he selected that day, I'm like, that's Memorial Day. So I just want to thank him for coming on and sharing time with all of us, because he brought a ton of value. And our guest is none other than Maxx Chewning. And for those of you that are not familiar with Maxx, like I said, he's a YouTuber. He started off building a fitness YouTube channel. It would be, him doing workouts, sharing products from the fitness world that he used, giving reviews on them. And it's just kind of morphed over time into now it's more of vlog, day in the life videos, building his different brands. He has a clothing company, Ever Forward. He has Sour Strips, his candy company. And he has partnerships with other brands like Go Supplements. And Maxx is just a really cool dude. And he gave us over an hour of his time on Memorial Day. So this is one you're going to want to listen to, take notes. We talk about everything from, his early life, starting off, what got him into entrepreneurship, how he was able to grow a YouTube channel while still having a W-2 job, how he knew when it was the right time to make that switch and go all in on his businesses, how he was able to grow, a fitness YouTube channel, social media, building content while creating a clothing brand. And now, in my opinion, the best sour strip or sour candy out there. It was just a great conversation. We had a lot of fun. So without further ado, here is Maxx Chewning. Hey, Maxx, welcome to the show, man.
What's up, dude? Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to connect.
No, I appreciate you coming on. And like I was just saying, when I sent the times, totally forgot that it was a holiday today. So that means even more that you're coming on and taking time out of your day. So
hey, man, your audience knows that you're dedicated on a holiday or not. Put the work in, bro.
Hey, money doesn't sleep, right? Or at least that's what they say.
That's right, man.
But this is kind of a real estate / personal finance show. So there might be some people that aren't familiar with Maxx Chewning. So if you don't mind, give, kind of like an elevator pitch, 60 seconds. Who is Maxx Chewning and what does he do?
Yeah. So I am a content creator at heart. YouTube is what I have built my community from over the past 10 years. I've been doing this for a decade now, over 1,400 YouTube videos put out. Started back in 2012 or 2013. Primarily in fitness. And from there, I was able to grow a pretty substantial audience and also through that leverage the audience to create some businesses. I dove into clothing and manufacturing, as well as a new and exciting candy company called Sour Strips. But other than that, I am a 33-year-old, quite immature man-child that still puts videos out on the internet on a regular basis.
Well, we have two things in common. I'm 33 and I can be immature. So we've got.
I thought the older that I got, the more I'd mature. And then I kind of thought that once you break over 30, I was like, are you allowed to still make jokes or is that immature? You can only make jokes when you're in your 20s. If you're in your 30s, it's like, come on, man, grow up in them. So, but we're still here. We're still Michael Scotting every day.
Well, dude, you got to have fun, man. You
Absolutely.
That's what you gotta have. That's what she said jokes, right? So
Every day.
all right, man. Well, so you said 1,400 YouTube videos.
Yeah, I thought it was like 1,100, but I looked at it. Yeah, I think it's, unless I'm mistaken, it's definitely over 1,000, but I'm pretty sure that it's like 1,400. I mean, I've been uploading. I mean, my frequency has gone down over the years, but I think the quality and the overall, quality of the videos have gone up. I mean, I started back in the day I made 4 videos a week for a long time while managing full-time job, gym, social life, the whole 9 yards, and then starting a clothing company. And then over the years, it kind of trickled down, but we're still pumping out 1 to 2 videos a week. Plus I have a podcast as well that I host and edit. So
yeah, it's called Don't Be Sour. And I would recommend anyone check it out. It's a great show. So
thank you for the plug, man.
Yeah, man. So the first thing that comes to mind when you say 1,400 videos, and it's something that I've interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs, people that are successful in their own right. And kind of a common theme is consistency. And that's the first thing I think of when you say 1,400 videos. What are your thoughts on that? Because that's a lot of time, man. Obviously coming up with the content, filming it, but then the back end, editing, producing, uploading. What is your thought on consistency and not only in YouTube, but in your business as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes without saying that it's a key factor in how someone can be successful. It's not the only thing that's going to be the measuring tool for success. Yeah. But I also kind of live in this fear thing that if I stop uploading and I take a break and I come back, people aren't going to be there, which usually is not the case. But I think when you find a passionate project, venture, business, whatever, and you're really, really into it, you don't even think of it as like, wow, I'm so, I've been consistently doing this for so long. It's just like in your blood. It's in your DNA. It's kind of like just what you do. And making these YouTube videos is something that it's just something I do. And luckily for me is over the years, I have definitely, my videos have changed. Some people love it, some people hate it, but they've evolved. And what I was able to do is kind of make it kind of selfishly, actually, but I took it away from the only fitness content where I'm just trying to teach you how to take creatine and why you should put fiber in your, cereal in the morning and stuff, into really a vlog about kind of like, hey guys, here's my life. If you want to follow along, that's cool. And I'm running these businesses and I'm going to give you a little, behind the scenes. And I didn't really intentionally do that. That's just kind of how the content evolved. And I think that's actually how organically it should. Right. But by doing that, I was able to make it a very sustainable platform for me to continue to upload these videos while still running the businesses, because now my content shifted and I just kind of film what I literally am doing throughout the day. There's definitely still some thought that goes into general concepts and, hey, I want to integrate this one topic in the video. How am I going to do that? And there's some thinking that goes into it. But I think when you get really into your craft, it's just like second nature. So it's a long-winded way to say, I think consistency is great, but I think consistency is a byproduct of just doing what you were already going to do, and then consistency is just like kind of gloating about how cool you are, how long you've been doing the thing that you're going to do anyway. Yeah,
man. And you mentioned something about fear of, if you went away, it might not be the same when you come back. That's another common thing I've heard is fear in general, the fear of, are they enough, or fear that they're going to lose it if they don't keep putting in the same effort. So I've heard that one as well. But I want to ask, did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Did you always know you're going to be an entrepreneur? Because you just mentioned that you had a job before and you were bouncing all this stuff. So did you know you want to be an entrepreneur? Or is it kind of just, like you said, just organic and it just kind of happened?
I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware of like Gary Vee, for example. And it wasn't really until I heard him make a comment that made me kind of rethink of my entrepreneurial journey, where he said, when I was, he talks like the high pitched voice, but he's like, when I was younger, I was selling baseball cards and flipping like all this stuff at school and like selling candy and stuff. And it kind of made me, because he's like, I've been, since day one, he's basically saying how long he's been an entrepreneur, even on a smaller scale of when he was a child. And I guess I try to take not that I'm not calling him pretentious, but like I take the pretentiousness away from being an entrepreneur, where it's like this, like you're an elite person if you're an entrepreneur. And if you're not an entrepreneur, you're not doing enough in life. And I don't agree with that. But when I heard that, it made me think back to when I was a kid. And I guess entrepreneurialism has always been something that's been deep rooted in myself and my family, but I didn't really like think of it like that as a kid. For example, I've been around entrepreneurs my whole life. My dad, he owned a bunch of coffee shops and a steakhouse, and he was an entrepreneur, got into real estate. But I was so young, I never really conceptualized. It wasn't like, oh my God, I want to do what my dad's doing. I want to own my own store. I want to work for myself. I saw all the stress. I never really know how successful he was, but it wasn't on the scale like even I'm at now. I mean, he was, there was a lot of tough times. Finances were very tight, but he was working for himself and he loved it. Right. And in those coffee shops, I actually got like a gumball machine when I was really young, from my aunt and uncle. And that was like my first real journey, is like, I got this gumball machine, then I'd buy the gumballs. And then every week or whatever, my dad would help me like take all the money out, and we'd put it in little like stacks of quarters. And I was able to take like one row of the stacks of quarters, and I could keep that. And the rest I had to put in like a savings account. So on a small scale, I sold gumballs, right? That's the very early phases. And then when I got into skateboarding, when I was, in my teens, like 15, 16, even younger, I started getting into videography back then. And there's these cameras called the Sony VX1000, Sony TRV 900. Maybe some people know those, but they're like $1,000, right? And I started trying to figure out how I'd raise this money to buy these cameras. And I kind of did what Gary Vee did. I would like look around my house and I'd be like, okay, like what shit can I sell on eBay? And I figured out how to make an eBay account. I started selling things on eBay that I didn't want anymore. So I started like, selling and making money. And then, so that was a little taste of it as well. I did all the basic things like walking around the neighborhood and mowing people's lawns and raking yards and stuff. So I've been working ever since I was a kid. And then actually in a job at 15. And then my first real entrepreneur, you're like, Max, you sold gumballs and you sold things your parents bought you online. That's not making an entrepreneur. That kind of leads me to when I got into working on Jeeps, which I'm a big diehard Jeep fan, the vehicles. It's the only car I've ever really loved. So when I got into off-roading and fabricating, I learned how to weld through some friends and whatnot. And we would make these things like these tube doors or roll cages for our cars. And I was on these forums back then. Before YouTube, it was like forums. So you go on and just post pictures and whatnot. And just like I show everything in my life now, I show everything that I did on my Jeep in photos on these build threads back in the day. But I had these people that were like, hey, can you build these Jeep tube doors for me? Can you build a roof rack for me? And I was like, oh, okay. And I started like making things for other people, and I would like weld them and I'd sell them. And I even had to ship some of them away. And so I started this little business. My brother even made me this logo. We were going to call it like Mad Max Custom Off-Road or something. And I never went down that path, but that was like my earliest kind of entrepreneurial journey, where I was like, I just looked at it as, I need money. How can I make money? It wasn't this, I want to start a business, I want to do all these things. I think I've just been always someone of like, there's a need that I have, and I know like what I need. I just going to figure out what I need to do to achieve that. And it just happens in my life that sometimes it's money is the thing that I want. Money is the thing that I want to achieve. Mm-hmm. How do I get there? And I just figure it out. So that's a really long-winded story of my super early entrepreneurialism. But yeah, I think it's always been in my brain to try to flip things, to make money, to just do whatever I could to make a little extra income. This is way back in the day, in like the early iPhone ages, when it wasn't as common to go into like the mall and replace your iPhone for screen for $100, or Apple would fix it. Back then it was very expensive. And I used to buy these, like the girls in my school would have like their phone would break and you just have to buy a new one. That was like what you did back then. You would just buy a new phone. But I found out you could sell them on eBay and people would fix them. So I would pay these girls like $50 or $100. I'd be like, I'll buy your phone, your cracked phone for $50 or $100. And they'd be like, why? I was like, just if you want, I'll buy it. Like you can use $100 towards your new phone. You got to buy a new phone anyway. They're like, all right. And I would buy it from them for like $100. And then I would sell them on eBay for like $300, like these broken phones. And then people would buy them and fix them and sell them for even more. But I've always been very fascinated by all the different ways you can make money. And everyone always made that like making money is this like really difficult thing. And it is, but I think that I look at it as I break it apart and I'm just like, okay, that's where I need to go. How do I get there? I'll figure it out.
I think that's classic entrepreneurship though, just figuring it out. Right.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. I didn't know that about the Jeep or the gumball, but it's kind of full circle. You're going from selling gumballs to sour strips. You're
the first person to make that comparison, but yeah, that's true. My first business was selling candy and maybe
blood.
Yeah.
No, that's great, man. I appreciate you sharing all that. But so I think I'm similar in the sense of I did a lot of those things, not the gumball, not the phone, but mowing lawns.
Yeah.
I'm from Northeast. So snow removal in the winter, just so I could buy a bike or buy whatever. Right. And my family were entrepreneurs, but I kind of fell out of that. I fell into the whole, like how society conditions us, go to school, which is a great thing. I'm not arguing against that, but go to school, get a 9-to-5, and that's what it is. And then I realized that's not who I am or what I want to do. And I made the transition. But my question to you is, because it sounds like you, from what I know, you did have a job. How did you know when it was the right time to leave? So I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. You're building a business, you know that if you go in on it, you could blow it up. But there's also that fear of, what if I don't, and I still got to pay for life.
I'll try to paint a very quick picture so the audience can kind of get an idea where I was at. Yeah. But I graduated college I always get the years. I think it's 2013. We're going to say 2013. 2013 was when I graduated college. And that's also the exact same time that I started my YouTube channel. So that's when I started my social media journey. It just happened to be that graduated college as I'm starting to make these YouTube videos. And now I come from a generation where, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, you start a family, the very traditional path, right? No one around me was really an entrepreneur making a bunch of money, making crazy income from, Amazon FBA. You'd occasionally hear like one person that did, but it just wasn't common. Right. So I started making YouTube videos and worked a job as a technical recruiter, IT staffer, which is what my mom did and still does. So that was just kind of like, I fell into that role. Right. And now I was not making any real money from YouTube. I mean, you're talking $50 here and there, $100. If you had a crazy month, it'd be like $300-$400. I always listen back to a lot of my friends, Christian Guzman, Nikki Blackadder back in the day, Heidi, like a lot of these people will say how they were making all this money even super early on. I was not like that. I was not making a lot of money off of social media. I was not figuring out ways to capitalize and make crazy amounts of income. So I worked this regular desk job, which I very much enjoyed. I balanced everything. And then, I'd say after the first year, started making more. After year 2, started really picking up. That's when I started making my clothing company. And now I was starting to be friends with my friend Christian Guzman, who owns Alpha Elite, who's been, he dropped out of school to pursue all this stuff. And he would always kind of not pressure me, but be like, you should quit. Just go all in on YouTube. But I was very risk adverse. I just didn't know what the future holds. It was very unknown, uncharted territory. It wasn't like it is now where everyone's doing it and the blueprint is very clearly there. It's just like, here's the tools, just go. And what I did is I weighed all the pros and cons, and I knew that I could always go back to my job if it didn't work out. So on the third year, this is 2016 in July. So almost, a long time ago, 2016. Yeah, it's crazy actually how long I've been a solo guy, but I basically tracked my finances for 12 months. Every month I would, between the clothing company, the social media, and then my normal job, right? I was like, how much money am I making from social media? And I basically tracked it for an entire year to see the ebbs and flows, to see if it was, I just had some great months and I was making good money, or was this a very sustainable thing? And once I had about 12 months of data of saying, hey, you're making very consistent money within $1,000 of each other, like every single month, and you're really making more money than you are your current job. The writing's on the wall, like take the risk, right? And you can always go back to the job. But even then, it was still a very scary thing to do. It was very, very, very scary because I was like, what if it fails? The 40 grand I was making for my job or something, 45,000. I was like, I'm going to lose that instantly. So even if I'm making more, I'm now getting rid of 45,000. So like, why wouldn't I just keep doing this so I can keep making that money? But you start to kind of weigh, I think the appropriate time to make that jump. I painted the picture of what it was for me, but it's when not only are you financially stable enough and you have consistent income over, I'd say 6+ months. I wouldn't say if you try something in 1 month, it pops off, to quit your job and change your life. But if you see that the pattern is there, that's number one. And then number two is the thing that you're doing, like your job, is it possibly preventing you from doing other things that would make you even more money? And for me, once I used up all my travel days, right, I wasn't able to just go to Texas to make YouTube videos, to go to these expos to film content. Like I couldn't do that. So I started realizing that this job is now preventing me from growth. I've hit the most, at least in my knowledge, this is the most amount of growth I can achieve while still doing this, this other thing. And then, flash forward, I made the leap, never looked back. And I think you just got to weigh the risk and rewards. But in summary, track your finances when you're at the right point. I think you'll know it's always going to be a scary jump. And then also when the opportunities are there waiting for you and you need to seize them. But I think no matter what, people think it's a very easy decision. And maybe some people are more, jump in without testing the water type of people, or I'm very much let me stick my toe in, let me see how cold the water is. And it's just, it's one of those things that it was the best decision of my life. I can't imagine what I would do if I never did that. But I think for people to make that choice, it's like kind of like you'll know when the time's right. Yep.
And you mentioned Christian, Heidi, other successful YouTubers, and Texas itself. Now, Max lives in Houston. You were in Virginia before, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How has that helped your career? Surrounding yourself with other quality, successful people that want to not only push you, but, kind of laid out a road for you to not necessarily follow, but, look out for pitfalls and be able to give you advice.
Yeah, I think my move from Virginia to Texas was tremendous in terms of like what it held for my future. It had more in store for me than I ever even thought at the time. I think it's kind of irrelevant, like where you are, to an extent. It really comes down to who you're surrounded with. And I had a lot of great friends and still do in Virginia. But they weren't going down the same path as me. They were going to more traditional jobs, which there's nothing wrong with that. I just knew that, hey, if I'm going to be this entrepreneur and I'm going to be working for myself, I think being surrounded by literally all the people that are doing the exact same thing as me, doing the social media, making YouTube videos, running their own businesses, figuring out, unique ways, non-traditional ways to make money. Like that's who I need to be around. So I made the leap, put myself in the environment of a network that I was already close with, but didn't live near. And yeah, it was best decision. I think surrounding yourself with like-minded people. I mean, obviously everyone's heard you're the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with, you're the average, right? And it really does make sense because not only when you start surrounding yourself with people, it's going to motivate you, is not in like a competition way, but you don't want to be the loser in the group, right? You don't want to be the person that's doing the worst. You don't want to do the person that's, slacking off when the other people are just leveling up. You want to keep up with everyone, but in like a friendly, I don't even want to use a competition, but it's just everyone else is leveling up so much. You don't want to be the one left in the dust. So I think it's very motivating to be around people that are, the same as you, doing better than you, and then where you, or even where you dream to be one day. So your network is everything.
Yeah. And Max, from an outside perspective, you've got a successful YouTube channel, multiple successful businesses, surrounded by quality, awesome people, awesome dog, awesome girlfriend, beautiful home. like Max has got it figured out, right? From an outside perspective, it seems like things are perfect, but are there things that you struggle with? Like as an entrepreneur
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, if they watch all my content, they know that I get pretty in my head on, social media growth. It's kind of like something that was, this kind of like upward thing for like so long. And then you never think that you're going to get to a peak point, right? You just think it's going to be like that forever. And everyone thinks like, you're like, no. I see it happen for everyone else, but no, I've been doing this for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. It's not going to happen to me. And it does. And so really getting in my head about just social media is something that like, I kind of like struggle with, but I'm at a much better place with it. And then really the other thing is like, obviously there's a lot of struggles and frustrations that come along with business, but I always knew that I knew many years ago that I wanted to try to like build my own life and build my own businesses and, work for myself. But within that, sometimes depending on your business venture, you don't realize that you're going to have to build a big old team. Right. And sometimes it's a virtual team and, it's just here and there, but sometimes it's a physical team. And with Sour Strips, just building like an actual core team has been actually a very big struggle for me. Because, finding the right people, treating them right, how do you know how much to pay people? How do you know when to give them raises? How do you know how to manage people? For the longest time, I would just be like, oh, I need to hire someone to build a website, right? You do your thing. Okay, great. But what do I do when you have, employees that you're there, you have to be there to motivate them. You have to be the one to inspire them. You have to be the one to kind of guide them to do better at their job. Whereas before I just kind of outsourced little tasks, right? Now you're building actual employees and managing people, and being a boss is never something that was in my plan. And that is definitely one of the bigger struggles. And it's something that I've gotten a lot better at, but it's still a learning experience every day.
Have you gotten better? Just trial and error? Is there any type of resources you kind of fall back on?
No, I mean, talking to friends and whatnot is great to kind of compare of like how they handle certain situations, but it's going to be like a different case by case basis and scenario for every single one. It's just understanding that with more people comes more personalities, more emotions, more drama, more, how can you converse with one person and you can't with the other one? How, what's the line of, how friendly are you going to be with certain people? What kind of jokes you making? Is one you kind of like a little too far, like, and like finding that and having, it's just learning. And again, everyone at the companies that work for me, has come from really like, besides maybe the creative people, no one's really come from like an experience at this type of job before, and they're just kind of hopping over to this role. Everyone kind of started at the bottom like me and just have learned into the roles. And so it creates this other level of complexity because we're building a company that no one has ever built before, at least the people in our team, right? So we're just figuring it out every single day. And with that comes a lot of, struggles, frustrations, successes, and you're just kind of dealing with them on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
When you hire, do you use any type of like personal assessment, like a DISC profile?
A what?
It's like I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like an assessment you take, and it kind of gives like a personality, not score, but profile.
Nah, I mean, I think for jobs, we haven't really had to do any big hires recently. But I think for jobs, it kind of comes down to like, the first one is like, can you do this job or not? Like, do you have the experience? Here's where the skill set are. I would hope that everyone applying for the job they're past that point, right? Like you can do it. After that, it comes down to like, do I think you're a good fit for our team? And what's the craziest thing is that's not really something you can even describe. It's something that really just in an interview, which I haven't had to do in a long time, is within the first 5 minutes of talking to the person, I'll just know. It's just, how do they carry themselves? How do they present? How are they sit, like just their persona, their aura, how they're answering, it's weird to even say, because I don't even know how to describe it, but you just have to be a fit for the culture. Right. And I think the bigger that Sour Strip specifically gets, we're going to start hiring probably some people with some more experience, who maybe are a little bit older, who haven't kind of come from, starting just packing an order in the warehouse to a financial role. We're going to hire someone who has come from a financial role into the finances. And at that point, maybe it'd be a little different, because I know I'm hiring more for like a very specific task that needs to get done at a high level. Not necessarily are we going to be BFFs, throwing back margaritas at the end of the day. But in a perfect world, they'd be all those things,
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's.
But no, I don't.
Culture, right?
So, and to fully answer the question is like, no, I don't use any sort of like personality test. And something that's very, I don't know about unique with me, but hopefully it's refreshing with people who want to start a business, is there's no model that I've followed to get where I'm at today. There's not. I don't read any business books. I don't. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but it's more for entertainment kind of purposes.
Yeah.
But I don't. I don't analyze trends and data and look at data reports, and I'm not like super analytical with it. I base a lot of my business decisions off of just emotion and kind of how I'm feeling. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But I think a lot of people get, the paralysis by analysis, where they are looking into it so much and think that every entrepreneur has this like business plan that's, to a T, and they're hitting all these marks, when in reality, I don't think a lot of them are like that at all. Especially just seeing my inner circle of friends with very successful businesses. I'm like, nah, everyone pretty much is just figuring it out how to do it every day.
No, I think that's most people, man. That's definitely me. But it's funny though, in the world we live in today, right, with social media. And I think this is what you're very good at. Because a lot of people aren't, and that's probably by design, is that they like the highlight reel, right? That they want you to see certain things, and that's it. But Maxx, on the other hand, if you guys don't follow him, he shares essentially everything. And I think from my point of view, Maxx, I think that's a lot of your success, is you're being who you are, original, transparent. And I think that's why, you talked about, your following not growing probably at the rate you wanted to, but from what I can see, I think you just have a very loyal following. And I think, that's, to me, at least to me, that is stronger than maybe.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Yeah. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So there's a few directions I wanted to go. And I guess, we could talk about the YouTube you've kind of already hit on this, but kind of the benefits of YouTube, why you're running these big businesses. Is it worth the time? I'm pretty sure I already know the answer, but I want to get your thoughts on that. And then also, to your point earlier, how like our generation, it was, go to college, do good there and get a good W-2 job. Now it's, people want to be a YouTuber. So what's advice for those people that might want to, create content?
Yeah. We can talk on the first one first about, leveraging like a YouTube audience. And I mean, obviously it is very, it's quite a smart decision to like leverage your audience that you've built to purchase products or services. But something that I very much try to take pride in is that I've delivered so much content for so long that I don't feel guilty at all about finally, saying, hey guys, I have some stuff to for you to buy, to sell, right? Very early on in my YouTube career, when I came out with like t-shirts and stuff, I really hated kind of the salesman, because early on, when it wasn't as normal for these influencers to be influencers where they have, discount codes every 10 minutes, right? Then it was like, I felt like ashamed, but I was like, man, I really, if you want me to keep making these YouTube videos, like I have to make money. Right. So it's like, how do I balance that? How do I sell you stuff? Like, you want me to make cooler videos, so I need to quit my job. But if you don't want me to sell you stuff, how am I going to make money? Right. Right. And at the end of the day, really life is literally just about buying shit. Like every day we're just consuming things that we purchased or services. It's unless you live in the woods all day, every day is you buying stuff. It's making money and you spending it on experiences. But, so over the years, building this large YouTube audience was definitely, a blessing that I didn't know, when I came up with the idea to create, the Sour Strips brand in 2019, and that was kind of really at the peak of my popularity, which I did not know. And then launching this candy brand, now a lot of people are like, well, your Sour Strips wouldn't be as successful as it was if you didn't have this audience. So I'm like, well, obviously I used it as a springboard to leverage my audience, but
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. But I look at it as, yes, it may be super easy to tell, 100,000 plus people at one time, hey, here's a product, go buy it. But I built that audience for 7 years before I launched that candy brand. So I put 7 years of work in to have a very easy, launch day. So I think building just an audience is crucial for any business, whether you're trying to be an actual influencer or not. And then now at my point, you made a comment about, is it worth it? Is like kind of the juice worth the squeeze of the headache and all that. Luckily for me, I'm able to make, my views and whatnot have gone down. I'm very aware of that. And I think a lot of it is because I was quite relatable on the rise, right? People wanted to see me win, wanted to see me open these gyms, I was like a, struggling kind of getting out of college person, had a crappy car. And now I've really achieved kind of like the dream, right? Like I've worked really hard and I've done very well. And I'm kind of like I'm up there. I'm at the top in my world of what I thought I could ever achieve. Right. So I'm probably not as relatable to people now because people are like, Max, you did it. Like, that's great. But like, well, how do I relate to you with a candy company and stuff? I don't relate to you. But because I'm able to make these videos about just my life, I've accepted like, hey, for me to keep doing this YouTube thing, it's going to be about my world that I live in and the people that are there to stick along with that. I'll be able to maintain uploading content for you because it's not going to put this big burden on me to make content, whereas I maybe need to work on the business. And now a lot of influencers are kind of the opposite of me, where they are, you look at these big brands that are coming out, whether it be the Mr. Beast or, Logan Paul, or a lot of people who come out these brands, and not to take anything away from them, but they're trying to be just the face of a really popular brand and let someone else kind of run it. Whereas I'm very much like, I want to be in the weeds of the company, the day-to-day operations. Whether or not that's smart, I have no idea. Probably not. But for me, YouTube does not take away from my ability to run these businesses because it's such a sustainable, easy kind of thing for me to do. But if I change my content up, and if I was going to do these crazy things and needing to travel all the time and do these crazy challenges, then I probably would put a burden on me. But because I've chosen to be hands-on in the business, I've been like, hey, my output is going to decrease a little bit. But I think because of the content that people are very comfortable with, of being it focused around kind of like, me and what I'm doing in my life, it's very sustainable. Is it worth it, like financially at this point? I think social media, even for me, is still a very lucrative business in itself. The Maxx Chewning kind of like brand is still a very good moneymaker. So for me, it's kind of like that same kind of a place I'm at with my old job, where I'm like, hey, I'm making really good money from social media. Do I need it? No. So, but I still want to do it because I enjoyed it and it's still making a good amount of money. So why would I stop? And YouTube's just kind of in my blood. Like I've been doing this for so long that I don't know what I would do if I wasn't filming YouTube videos. Like I really like making content. So I think I'll keep making content until people just get really, really bored of me, man. I don't know.
Well, dude, you're good at it, man. So don't give up yet.
Thank you.
But it seems like they all feed each other, right? Like it's like a marketing arm for everything, right? And they all feed one another. Like for those of you who follow Max, Skew the Data, and he reposts that. I don't know if you intend to do that. That's brilliant. Now, so what that is, for those that aren't familiar with it, is Sour Strips Candy Company. And he has it in places like Target, which is just insane. And I know you guys are killing it, but people will go and they will film themselves grabbing a bunch of Sour Strips off the rack or whatever you want to call it and say, Skew the Data. And then he just, puts that back on his Instagram. It's genius, man. I don't know if that was just organically happened or if that was by design, but that was genius.
That was definitely not like some master plan that I have. And it turned into this kind of meme thing in the Maxx world of like, people doing it, and hopefully they're, actually buying it, not just skewing the data and then putting it back on the shelf there. But no, I think there's so much value as well that has carryover to like all the other brands. And, I think when people are in social media, especially when they been doing it for a very long time, like 5, 6, 7+ years, you start understanding that there is going to be a shelf life, right, of your personality, of your either ability to upload content, your desire to make content, the desire for people to watch your content. And I think when people get to that point and realize that, oh, this social media money may not always be coming in, or this popularity may not always be coming, or, the next hot person's going to come along and be cooler than me, they start kind of going this fear thing. We're like, okay, I need to start a brand. But then if the brand is so tied to them, then they're like, I have to keep feeding this beast. It's essentially golden handcuffs. And a lot of people would love to be in this situation. So it's not like a complaint, but it's kind of like you have to keep feeding the beast, right? Keep, shoving coal in the fire, because if you stop making content, the business will dramatically shut down, right? It'll be, 50, 60, 70% of your purchase, of your customers were people who followed you, were because of you. And that's not really where you want to be, but it's a very hard thing to get out of. And with Sour Strips, it's actually a really unique business because it has superseded me substantially, bigger than I ever thought. So that, it's Sour Strips is to a point that if I fell off the face of the earth tomorrow and stopped uploading content, Sour Strips would continue to grow, like week over week, month over month, year over year. It would continue to grow without me needing to be involved at all, without my name being there. And I think that is extremely powerful. And it just really shows the power of what we've created, that it's not a, Maxx Chewning candy. It's Sour Strips. And then, oh shit, there's a guy that owns it who also makes YouTube videos. That's kind of what it is now. So that's like what everyone needs to work towards, is creating a brand where the success of it does not rely on you. And that's very hard. It's easier said than done. But now that I'm in that position, I'm like, holy crap, thank goodness that it went this way, because as your popularity drops, like you need to have a plan. You need to figure it out, or you maximized it so much that you're like, hey, I made a bunch of money. I didn't spend it all. On to the next thing. We'll figure it out.
No, that's so true. And I think it's important with any business, right? Especially if, I don't know what your goal is, but just in general, if your goal is to exit your business one day, if it's tied to the person, that makes it a lot tougher from a valuation standpoint. And they'd probably want you to stay on for an X number of years.
For sure.
That helps a lot. So let's talk about Sour Strips and scaling that type of business. You mentioned you mostly podcast, but I don't know if you've ever heard of the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight about Nike. But he talks about scaling Nike, and the tough thing with scaling a business like that is, cash flow, right? Because as you're starting, you're pulling in revenue from selling the product, but then you immediately just got to go buy, materials or goods or whatever it happens to be to then go sell again. So how has it been scaling a business like that? Because from what I understand, this is all Maxx Chewning. This isn't taking outside investors.
Yeah.
So that must have been tough, at least at the beginning. Maybe still is. I don't know.
Yeah, I will definitely agree that managing cash flow is absolutely one of the most crucial and important and stressful things that every business owner will get into at some point, unless you had this gem of a product where, it cost you $1 to make and you can sell it for 20 and your margins are crazy. Maybe that's not you, but for most people, it is going to be a very uphill battle. And there's gonna be a lot of times where you are very stressed and the people around you will have no idea what's going on. All your employees, have no idea that you barely have enough money to pay their salary for the next month because you had to buy so much product to keep running this business. And when I started Sour Strips, which back in 2019, I had a lot of people, Sour Strips is absolutely a premium candy brand. It is more expensive than any other candy. Delicious though. It's so it's priced higher. And the way that I chose that for a couple of reasons, one, if if people are willing to pay it, that's the correct price, right? That's the first thing you should understand. But I looked at it as, okay, this candy is amazing. And I think for myself as a candy connoisseur, if I walked into a store and it was $1 to $2 more expensive than the other candy right next to it, but it's that good, I would buy it. And I knew that if I could answer that myself of Maxx 10 years ago, because of how good the candy is, then I'm like, I think the price won't matter if it's a little dollar more expensive. But I got a lot of pushback when I first launched the brand of, why are you going to sell a bag for $3.50 when I can get 2 times the gummy worms, for $1 next to it? And the biggest thing there was no way, if you try to compete on price, can you have a business where you can financially manage it for a long period of time? Because these other companies that have these low prices, they have economies of scale, right? They have the ability to have these low prices and have this manufacturing. When you're starting a business, you need that cash. You wouldn't be able to afford to grow the business so that everyone can enjoy it if you price yourself out of business and you price yourself so low, right? So managing cash is definitely something that is crucial in understanding the correct price points. And it's something that you'll learn. And what I started with Sour Strips is I didn't have like a specific number. I wasn't like, I'm going to put this much into the business. It just happened that for the, all of like the pre-production and getting everything ready, the design, the lawyers, and the first like 1 to 3 orders of candy and all this stuff, it essentially cost me $50,000 to like get Sour Strips off the ground. It was $50,000. That's just what it cost. And then over the years, we've gone through a lot of ups and downs with our pricing of improvements and fallbacks and whatnot and extreme costs. And there were definitely some times, more often than I'd like to admit, of extremely stressful cash flow problems where, a lot of people don't know in the CPG world that when you get into these large retailers or Target, for example, and they told us like, hey, we want to roll you out in 1,300 locations out of the gate. You're like, woo, this is awesome, right? But just for that order, which now we do about 3 times this on a weekly basis, but just the order was like, they needed, like 100,000 bags of candy, but you're not going into like June, but you need to order that amount of candy, which is more than you've ever ordered before, because you're about to increase your stores by so much. You have to buy that 4 months ahead of time, right? Get it all ready. So you're paying for it way up front. Then you're sitting on it because you got to get it ready. It doesn't work that it can just come at the exact moment it needs to go out the door. And then there's payment terms where Target's not going to pay you for 45 days. Yeah. So you essentially need to float this huge amount of inventory for potentially 3 to 5 months, right? While everything else is going on in the business, Yeah. And there were some big launches that we had where we got down to the last couple $1,000 in the bank account. And it was extremely stressful. Sure. Now I'm someone who's extremely fortunate. So it always sounds kind of weird when I say that, because I also had, I have my personal money that I could have dove into. Right. So it wasn't like it was the end of the world, but I tried to treat that business like it is. Like I need to think of it like it's its own entity, that it can't have, it can't have Daddy Maxx bailing it out. Right. Like so that's how I did it. And luckily, through a lot of luck and trial and error and maybe some good decisions when I didn't know that it was going to be a good decision. Now we are at a very, very healthy point financially in the company that we can float some stuff for a bit if we need to. We can invest into some new space and it not tie us up financially. And I have no investors. I have no other partners, taken no outside capital. We have like a small $300,000 line of credit with our manufacturer that we just kind of use to speed up the delivery, really, not to like need that 300K. Right. But yeah, I've, as someone who doesn't have anyone in the business that handles the finances, the fact that I've been able to get the business from what we were to what we're at now, essentially by myself, my own decision-making, is actually pretty crazy.
Impressive, man. It's very impressive.
Thank you, man.
No,
I feel like my answers are always so long and in depth.
No, I love
and drawn out. Like
no, man,
I need to get to the point a lot faster.
No, you're bringing a lot of value. I appreciate it. You mentioned space, because I think, especially when you're selling like a physical product, that's huge, especially when you have to float inventory before you can deliver it. And I've seen you post this on social media. It's the old, do I buy more than I need now, or lease more space than I need now and spend more than I really need, knowing I'll grow into it, or not? Because what if there's always the fear of maybe that doesn't happen? I know you're probably still struggling with that, but how do you make that decision?
So this is about like knowing kind of how big to go with your company in terms of like
next warehouse, next,
Yeah, I'll give you a little kind of a nerdy, in-depth answer on this, because I'm going through this right now. Like right now, we are currently, when I started Sour Strips in really like a closet. It was like the office, right? It was a spare office we had in our office. It was like a 12 by 12 room. That's how I launched Sour Strips out of, like a literal bedroom almost. Then we went to 1,000 square feet, which was great. And then we jumped from 1,000 to our current warehouse, which is 15,000 square feet. And when we went into that 15,000 square feet, I was so nervous. I almost went with half that size, 7,000, because I was like, there's no way that we're ever going to fill this up. There's no way. And I had my friend Christian, who is a dreamer, a big believer. And he's like, go bigger. I'm telling you, go bigger. And I really was hesitant to do it because I was like, no. Like, I understand my business. The half this size will be fine. But flash forward, thank God I went with the larger warehouse, because not only a year into that warehouse, I then had to rent another 10,000 square foot warehouse down the street because I didn't have enough space. And we're renting office space that I'm paying a whole bunch of money at Alpha Land because we don't have enough office space. And now we are in a pickle where we still have about a year and a half left on our lease. Our lease doesn't end until October of next year, but we're currently really at kind of like max capacity at our current warehouse. And with people don't know is like, generally when you think of leases, usually I think the first number that comes to people's head is like a 3-year lease on a warehouse. But when you start getting into like the larger warehouses, I'd say above 15, above 20,000 square feet, all of those for the most part deal in 5 to 7 year leases. And it's very hard to think of, how the hell do I know where I'm going to be in 7 years? And you really have to go through this balancing act of, okay, do I get something that I think will sustain our growth and give us a little bit room to grow, right? But there's a chance we outgrow it, and then we have to pay all this money to go to another warehouse. Or do I go bigger? But the decision there is, okay, if I'm going to sign a 7-year lease, do I get 7 years of growth of space and then pay for more space than I need for 2 years until I get to that point? Yeah. For most companies, they're well established and they understand they're going to have a 5 to 10% growth every year. When you're a startup like this, we're growing 100% year over year. Now that's not going to be in, infinity, right? But at the moment, it's a big decision for us is, how big do we go? Do we get, if we're going to commit to a 5 to 7 year lease, how do we know how big we're going to go? And sometimes I look at it as, you know what? Let's get a warehouse that sustains a good amount of growth that allow us to, we'll say 3x our revenue. I look at it like that. And in my mind, I'm like, if we can 3x our revenue, no matter what year I'm at that warehouse, we basically let future Max worry about that problem. Because if we 3x our revenue and we're bursting out of the seams, we're going to be having so much damn money that it will be essentially a drop in the bucket if we need to do something at that point. Like, we should be so thankful that we have to spend money to get out of this lease because we're just raking in the dough. Right. But at the end of the day, you won't know. I'm balancing going through, I have 3 different warehouses and some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger. And if I go with the bigger one, it's like, yes, it could sustain our growth for the next 5 to 7 years, but there's a chance that for 2 years, I'm going to be spending an extra $10,000 a month on the extra space that I will not be using. And you balance that. Do you want to spend more money up front to potentially handle your growth? Or do you maximize your cash and go smaller, but then potentially need to spend more money in 2.5 years? There's pros and cons to everything. But it really comes down to your specific, how risk adverse you are, kind of understanding, hey, if the growth has been like this and you're only kind of like touching in certain stores and you're in contacts with their stores and like it's seeming like a very clear kind of runway of what the future is going to hold for you, then you can kind of bet on yourself. And if there's ever a company that I've willing to go all in on, it's Sour Strips. But even I, with a very healthy bank account and financial statements with Sour Strips, a very clear path of the success that we're going to have in the stores we can go into. And I see the future is still like a rocket ship up. I'm still very nervous about signing a long lease. I'm still very nervous about picking which warehouse size to go with, because no matter what stage you're at, you're still going to have those butterflies in your stomach, the nervousness, the queasiness of, am I making this right decision? Am I going to be wasting money? What if this goes wrong? What if I sign a 7-year lease and the company goes under? You don't want to think about that, but you don't want the employees to hear that that's even a thought in your head. But I'm about to sign a potentially, $7 million 7-year term. All that's on me.
Yeah.
So it is a big commitment. It is a big risk. Does make me scared, but we're going to figure it out, man. We're figuring it out. And actually, like next week, I should know exactly which of these warehouses I'm going with.
That's a good, man. One, that's very impressive, man. That's awesome. But also, I think it's a good thing you feel that way, right? I think it would.
Well, and another comment I want to say real fast, not to cut you off, is
no, you're good.
It's also easy, and it's easy and difficult when you put out in the world. It's easy to get a lot of other people's opinions, but you really need to like take people's advice, but still make your clear and concise decision. Because whenever I talk about warehouses, right, and I put them on my YouTube videos, and I say, all right, guys, here's one that's way bigger than we even thought about looking at, but look at this. You're going to get 1 million comments. Max, go bigger, baby, go bigger. Look at the company, go bigger. And you're like, oh yeah, I should do this. But you don't want to you want people to root you on, but you don't want people to like make decisions for you. You have to be a very clear and concise understanding. Now, someone like Christian, some people are just like big as possible. I can't lose. YOLO. Like we're going to do it. And it works for some people,
right?
But maybe people can relate to me where it's like, I second guess my decisions. I get nervous. I question if I'm making the best financial decision for the company, So I think it's okay to be on either side of the decision-making process.
Yeah. I think that's probably why you've been able to grow and not take outside money too, is, you're a good steward of your own money and your own business, your employees, which that's impressive.
Because I'm frugal and I'm cheap as
There you go.
I'm always like, wait a second, we're paying $10 for saran wrap. What? There's another company that if we switch, we can get it for $9. Switch. Yeah. I'm looking for we're auditing everything in the warehouse and yeah.
Man, I know we're coming up on time here, but I got a couple more questions. Fine, man. If that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So let's switch, because I talk personal finance every Friday, and I saw you post something the other day. And don't get too excited, but you said you wanted to debate someone on credit cards versus debit cards.
Oh yeah.
So I said, don't get too excited, because I'm on your side. So I'm not going to be the one to debate you on this. But I will play a little devil's advocate, I guess. So why a credit card over debit card, Max? Like, right. The whole Dave Ramsey's, throw away that credit card. If you have the credit, you can spend it. Why a credit card?
Well, I think there's never a black and white type of answer, right? Because I would say I have a very clear, there should be no one that disagrees with me because I lay the facts out, right? Yeah. But you need to remember that there are individuals that cannot handle their finances, that if they have the ability to spend more money, then they will. And I'm more talking, and I hate using the term of I'm talking to the normal person, the rational person, the the responsible person. That's who I'm talking to. And Dave Ramsey is talking to the people who get out of control and have no idea how they got themselves into debt. Because I look at it, I'm like, how do you get into this debt? Like, I understand I'm doing well now, but Max 10 years ago never got these problems because I make my decisions based on, do I have the money? Can I afford it? Yes or no? It's not I'm not going to put things on credit card, but so that's the first thing I'll clarify. So I'm speaking to people who I think are rational, people who just are afraid of credit cards, of what they heard. The credit card perks, right? So first of all, I don't have a credit or a debit card in my wallet. I haven't had a debit card on my persons in probably the last 7+ years. I use credit card for literally everything I can. I get pissed if I cannot use a credit card. If I have to pay with PayPal or a bank wire, I'm pissed because I want credit card. I want those points, assuming you're not paying a credit card fee. But the benefits are, first, you're going to get a lot more of your purchase protection through your credit card versus debit card, right? So if someone steals your credit card, they buy a bunch of shit, the chances of you getting your money back are substantially higher with a credit card because their fraud protection services are just dramatically better than probably any debit card. Just like that's just a very known kind of thing. You're probably still going to have some headaches either way if you go down that path, but that should be something that there's more layers of protection with a credit card for whatever reason. I don't know why, but there just is, right? There just are. The second thing, very simple, is you're going to make money on your money, right? There's cash back, there's points which convert to stuff. There's reward travel, there's dining. There's a bunch of rewards, right? So in my mind, it would be why, if you're going to buy it anyway, and you can make, even you're making 10 cents back on that purchase, why wouldn't you? Yep. I'd be like, hey, for the rest of your life, give me 25 cents every time you buy anything. For the first couple of times, be like, okay, but eventually be like, man, this is really adding up. And it adds up, right? People think it's just small pennies, but it's like small, it makes a lot of money over time, especially when you're running a business and you put it all on your business credit card. So the perks of it, right? Now, I think on the opposite side of that, you're going to have the people that are going to say, well, people are going to spend more money than they normally would so they can make the points, and they're going to spend irrationally, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not talking to those people. Right. I'm just talking to people who just think that the credit cards are the devil. Bobby Boucher's mom is like, don't talk to little girls, Bobby. And freaking, don't do credit cards. Yeah. You're also going to build your credit. It's an unfortunate thing that you need. You want to buy a home, you want to buy a car, unless you plan on buying everything in cash, right? Period. You need credit. Love it, hate it, whatever. If you hate the process, go live in the woods if you hate it, right? Just don't use the system. But if you want to build your credit, as slow as it might be, a credit card is going to be a great thing for you to build your credit. It's going to help you in your future, right? And really, those are like the main kind of points I kind of talk on. And I think a lot of the hesitation comes into the like your spending things. But I just always tell everyone, I'm like, don't even think of it as a credit card. Just think of it like as a debit card. It can, pay it off every month at the end of the month in full. Don't make installments on it. Yeah. Just pay it off in full. And it blows my mind how anyone could disagree with that. Unless you 100%. Are someone like big. I think some people think that, okay, I have this credit card and it has a $10,000 limit. I only make $3,000 a month. Oh no, now I make $10,000 a month because I can spend $10,000 and I only have to pay back $200 next month, but that's the downward spiral. Right. I'm like, if you're a rational person, if you're going to go to Chipotle and use your debit card, just buy the same thing with a credit card. If you're going to go buy anything, just buy it with a credit card, set it to auto pay every month. It'll do it for you. You don't even need to do anything. You just auto pay in full every month, and it's a win-win for everyone. And I would love to go in more depth if I had someone who's like anti-credit cards, because I feel like I could combat any qualm they have with a rational reasoning. And again, there are going to be outliers in any situation. There are going to be situations where I'm like, okay, this person probably doesn't need a credit card, but I'm talking to the I say the normal, sounds bad, but like the rational, responsible, like, fine with their money person, for those people, absolutely you should be using a credit card. Absolutely. You couldn't convince me otherwise. You could not convince me that you should use a debit card over a credit card ever.
Yeah, I think the only argument there is for the people that can't manage money or credit. Other than that, it just doesn't make sense to use a debit card.
That's like that's a deeper rooted issue than a credit card. That's a personal choice. I mean, it's crazy because it blows my mind sometimes when I watch these like, money shows or money reality shows, and it shows people, in credit card debt and having like, $10,000 in credit card debt and having to pay back, and they're paying back on the interest and stuff. And I'm like, how did this even happen? Like, so you bought stuff that you couldn't afford. Why did you do that? And I can't wrap my head around why people do that, because I've never been like that. Even when I was making no money, if I didn't have the money, I wouldn't buy it. So I guess I can't relate to that type of person. So that's where I could understand the difficulty in maybe rationalizing with someone. But for the normal person who just thinks that, oh, I've just heard credit cards, like you go into debt if you have credit cards. For those people, you should literally throw away your debit card, cut them up, put them in a drawer or something, and get credit cards, period.
No, 100%, man. And there's a lot of benefits. One of the best ones is, you said, the points in travel. Like, I'll be going on my honeymoon with my fiance, then I guess she'll be my wife at that point. But all of our flights and majority of our hotels are paid on points and miles that I spent on things I would have spent on no matter what. So
exactly. I think the argument is that people are like, let's say you use 30,000 points and you got a free flight. They're like, you spent $30,000 for that thing. That's not free. It's like, yes, but I didn't buy things on the credit card just because they're a credit card. I bought the same shit that I was already going to buy. Like, if anything, there you go, skewing the data. If anything, people just need to make a credit card that says debit card on it, but it's actually a credit card. Yeah. It's like, I just don't understand. Because if you wouldn't do it with your debit card, like that's the biggest thing. Like, if you just say to someone, like, treat this like a debit card in every way possible, and they can either do that or not do that. And if they're like, oh, well, that makes way more sense. It's just like my debit card, and just set it to auto pay. This blows my mind, honestly. But again, everyone's in different points, and some people don't have the self-control and whatnot. And that I would understand. But I think that I'd be like, no, there's a deeper issue that you need to fix, and then get a credit card.
Yeah. All right, man. Lightning round, and then I'll let you go because I know you're a busy guy. Just first thing that comes to mind when I answer these questions, when I ask these questions. Favorite candy?
Sour strips.
Duh. My fiance wanted me to ask this question. I did see Dude over there.
He's under the desk right now.
Awesome dog. She wants to know, would you ever get a second dog?
Taylor would love that. I would love it as well. But I kind of think when we have a kid, when I maybe start building another home, when I'm kind of can take some time off from the businesses and slow down a little bit. The answer is long-term. Yes, I would love another dog, another doodle specifically. But at the moment, I do not plan to get another dog. I think, I take Dude everywhere with me, and taking 2 dogs is
true.
Double, right? So not anytime soon, but maybe in a couple of years.
All right. Lake or ocean?
Ooh, lake, honestly.
Okay, me too. And listeners,
I hate salt water. I'm not a big. I'm going to Cancun in a couple of weeks with Taylor for a vacation, and me personally, I'd much rather hang by the pool than hang by the beach.
All right. My fiance actually asked me to ask that question: pool or beach. So we got that answer.
Yeah.
What's on your bucket list for travel?
I don't really have. I think not even just where I'm at now, but I think at any point, like if I wanted to go somewhere, I would just go there. I'd figure out a way to go there. I'd figure out how to achieve the money to get to where I need to go, or I just realize, hey, it's not that, don't really care. I've really traveled a lot over my 10 years of being on social media. I've gone all over the world, from Australia to Spain to Canada to freaking, the UK to Greece to all these places. So I'm living it. I don't really think there's a lot of places I'd love to travel. I'd love to maybe go to like Japan. I'd love to go to really Japan's kind of like Tokyo or something. It would be cool to go see that side of the world. But other than that, I'm a tropical guy. So I'd love to go to the Cabo, the Turks and Caicos, all these tropical places, wherever there's a frozen margarita and some jet skis, man. But I was
actually going to ask you, I didn't know the answer, but frozen margarita or on the rocks?
Oh God. I've frozen all day, every day. There's literally never a situation where you will see me order a on the rocks if there is a frozen, period. Like there's no case scenario.
Love it. All right. SRT or Trackhawk?
You'd think I'd say Trackhawk because of the fastness of it, but I think honestly the emblems and I don't like the Trackhawk badging and all that shit. I really think just the letters of SRT on like the steering wheel and all that stuff. So I'd want to say SRT, but I'm kind of a sucker, and it just happens that the cars are more expensive. But I'm kind of like, all my life I've always been especially with like technology, if there's like the best version of, if there's like 5 models of something, I want the best version of it, like period. And I've been like that for a long, long time. So it's like, if I'm to get a camera, I want the best version of that camera. If there's a new version of something that comes out that can do one more cooler thing, or there's a little better picture on it, I'm getting it. That's why I'm a sucker. I'm an Apple sheep. I get the new phone every year. When the new drone comes out, will it make my videos any better than my old drone? No, but it's newer and shinier. So whenever the newest thing comes out, I'm a sucker for new shiny technology, and that applies to the Jeep world at the moment. So if it's an SRT, I'll get it. If it's a Trackhawk, I'll get that.
Just debadge it, right?
Yeah.
All right, 2 more questions. Favorite Eminem song?
Probably Criminal or Rabbit Run, which
Rabbit Run's really good. It's a good gym song.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. It's actually what's really cool about that song. People maybe you don't realize how cool it is it's like a 4.5 minute song with no chorus, where generally a chorus fills up a minute of the song. So it is like 4.5 minutes of rapping. Like just there's no chorus that's repeated. It's a really cool song.
Only he can do that. All right. Last question. Where do you see Sour Strips in the future?
I hope to see Sour Strips in every single gas station, convenience store, country. It's been really, really cool and humbling to see something, just kind of like an idea that I had, turn into something so big. And I definitely did not think it would grow this quickly. And, seeing people that are in like Qatar or Dubai tag me on their stories, like buying it at the local market or something. And I'm just like, what in the world? And, this podcast will go up. We're about to launch into a chain of stores called FYE, For Your Own Entertainment. It's used to sell just like CDs in the mall and stuff. And now they sell a lot of different stuff. They're still around over 200 locations. But we're about to roll into this store. And when I got the store list the other day, just something that was super cool for me is one of the stores is one in Roanoke, Virginia, which is where I grew up. And I specifically know exactly what mall, where that is in the mall. And I used to walk around as a kid in this store looking at CDs and shit, 20 some years ago. And now we're going to sell a product in there. And like, those are the cool moments that just make me be like, what the heck? Like I did this, me and my team did this. It's crazy.
Dude, that's impressive, man. Well, first of all, thank you for your time, Max. This has been awesome.
Absolutely, man.
Really cool that you did this. And for those that don't know, he posted his struggle of getting guests, which Max is, like I said, he's very good at just being transparent with everything he does, but the struggle of getting good quality guests, which I will attest to. And so he put it up. If anyone else has a podcast, he would happily come on. And as you can tell, he's a man of his word.
I'm trying, man. We got the next 7 days. I got 10 10 podcasts I'm going to go on. So it's, when I started the podcast, it was definitely something, getting the first couple is not that big of a deal, but which everyone will realize is like you hit a wall at some point and we're like, I don't know who else I'm gonna talk to. So, and it's cool. And it's like, I'm glad that if, I can help in any way on anyone's podcast, and it's just cool to interact with a lot of, other people and see the other niches in the podcast world.
Yeah, man. Well, this has been awesome. So thank you. Before I let you go, where can people find you?
You can just search my name, Maxx Chewning. I have 2 X's on everything, and you'll find them. And then, if you want to check out Sour Strips, we'd love to have you in the little Sour Strips community. You can find them online at sourstrips.com, or you can go to your local Target or many of the stores around you.
They're delicious. I'll put the links in the show notes too.
Hey, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, man. Great YouTube channel. Rate on Instagram. Everford is his clothing brand. And then obviously Sour Strips. And then he does stuff with Ghost. He has some energy drinks that were phenomenal. So go check Max out. To your point earlier, Max, of, when you start off in YouTube and you weren't sure if you should start, doing sponsorships and charging people. From my point of view, as being someone that watches your content, it gets to a point where you're just like, this guy's just putting out awesome content for free. It's like my duty and obligation to support someone like that. So,
well, I appreciate it, man, a lot.
So, and he actually does have the sour strips I'm not just saying this because he's on here. They're delicious. So if you like sour candy, go get them. But Max, thanks for your time, man, especially on Memorial Day. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed listening.
All right, guys, catch you on the next one.
Hey, this is Shawn Winslow. After being in the financial service industry for years and having candid conversations with good people just like you, I realized that so many of us are wanting an investment strategy that provides solid returns and consistent income without the bumps in the road. There's little known secret that your financial advisor doesn't want you to know. There is investment out there that is less volatile and the returns are stronger. Get more details by going to greenbriercg.com and clicking on the free e-report. And by the way, if this show has provided you any value, then feel free to leave an honest written review and of course share it with a friend who needs it. See you next week for another great show.